pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 9:30 a.m. work session. I would ask the Secretary Treasurer to call the roll.
President Scott M. Horwitz.
Mhm.
Secretary Treasurer William Pellis, President Edward J. Warner.
Present.
Ann Walker.
Here.
And William Parrish.
Present.
All right, thank you very much. We have just a brief discussion on here. We
I
had
think before we should start, we should announce that, about the village sewer plant. We've been getting a lot of emails about the village sewer treatment plant, what they're proposing. We know nothing about it. We know just as much as you guys know about it. They're gonna come in and give us a presentation sometime after the May 23rd, when they formally announce it.
Well, it's not within our jurisdiction.
It's not in our jurisdiction, but we do get a lot of information on it.
Well, people send emails off all the time, I
Yeah.
get, that are totally outside of our jurisdiction. I think they just hit the email of,
And people have
All
been
types of
calling us,
officials.
yeah, they've been calling us and asking us questions, so we should know information on
probably
it.
got to be referred to the village trustees, the
Yes.
town, not the town trustees. There's various different trustee boards throughout the entire region.
Right, whoever has appropriate jurisdiction, refer
Correct.
them to that party.
Right, so
or
we would,
parties.
right, so a lot of times there's confusion over the village trustees versus the town trustees.
Trustees.
So I think that's what people have to be educated on, and it's a common,
Knowledge.
Yeah, but right now, we don't have anything to even review, so
Nope,
until we
we have
get a
nothing to review.
request, and that we will post it on our website for the people, the public, to watch.
Yeah.
or
Which is,
to,
in our
keep comment.
jurisdiction.
Yep, yes, correct.
okay. We do have a brief discussion on for the trustee ramp at 22 Little Neck Road. We did get a phone call about unloading some type of a container from a resident that's having a boat shipped in to launch there, but we really don't
I
have.
have, yeah.
You have that?
So Lene, I took a phone call on Friday. The gentleman is having a sailboat shipped from, I believe, Europe somewhere. And he would like to have the container brought right to the ramp so that he can immediately put the boat into the water. And he was inquiring as to what that would, could he do it?
What does that boat draw?
It's a small, as far as I know, it's a small sailboat.
Container's usually 24 feet by 8.
It wasn't
Yeah.
that, it was the once he gets it out of the container.
Yeah, so it has to be, you can't draw much because it's in a container.
Yeah.
But it has to have a ramp permit. Someone has to have a
Right,
ramp
we
permit.
told him that he needed a ramp
And
permit.
how long the container's gonna sit there? It can't be sitting there.
Apparently, he's gonna unload the boat and the container's gonna be gone.
Well, this would take very, very swift coordination, because you can't put the trustee ramp property in a situation where you're sitting with a container, blocking things and creating an issue. This is
Right.
really a more appropriate for a commercial marina, I think, that has the wherewithal to do this. So this is, it's got to be looked at very carefully, consideration-wise.
He's looking for like June 28th or 29th,
Well, I mean,
so,
logistically, if the boat has a skeg on it, they wouldn't be able to launch it there because they would need a machine with like a well to drop it into. I mean, we don't know what we're even talking about really as far as a boat.
we did tell him to come.
They would need a large skid steer to pick the boat up, and there's no launching ramp there and facilities to do that. It would be best that if he would go to a local marina where they could provide those services and, and have the insurance and have the capability of doing it.
I think we need more information.
Yeah, there's not enough information, but
Yeah, I mean,
it
Linnea
sounds-
took the call. Do you want her to come up, or do you want her to just get some more information and let you guys know?
Yeah, we need more information.
Okay.
We should probably get a phone call from this person so we could ask some questions specifically. There's really
Yeah,
not
we
enough-
did tell
Or an
him to
email with
come.
details.
Right.
But
And
I
some
don't
photographs
see
of the
him here.
boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a lot more information, as
Okay.
we said, so right out of the gate, it was we can't handle that because of the logistical issues, but it's certainly worth, having a conversation to get, a better determination on that.
So Mr. Fowler is the owner?
Fowler, it looks like.
Yeah, John Fowler.
So
Fowler.
hopefully, if we get an email with some information from him, that'd be great, Lise.
Yeah, I'll
But
let
even
you, yeah.
still, I mean, I wouldn't, to put a boat in the water, you'd need a well to drop it into. That ramp is pitched, and the boat, if it even has a skeg or a dagger board or anything, it's gonna be right on the bottom.
Might be a flat bottom boat, I don't think it draws much
It
water.
could be a flat bottom, it could be, we don't even know what we're
We need
talking
to
about.
Yeah, no.
We don't even know, it's just a
We
matter
didn't give
of,
her much information.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, logistics of shipping containers coming to property that is highly used and highly congested, and what type of an issue is that gonna create? And, you know that the private marinas handle this all the time, right? They
There's one right up the
they
street.
charge for it.
I have some concerns with the trustees setting a precedent, allowing any deliveries of boats to ramps where it may.
Yeah, it's not the same as rolling it on a trailer, traditional ramp use.
Yeah.
This is a completely different
Yeah,
scenario.
it's not gonna be in and out.
Right, I think it could be problematic, so that's a concern. All right, so we need more information, but as it stood, it's like something we generally do not do.
Dave is here.
Huh?
Dayton is here. Do you want her to speak now?
Yeah, let her come up and address the board.
Yeah, Dave, you have something that's of urgency, I think, for the board? Why don't you come on up?
Yeah, thank you for seeing me on such short
Well,
notice.
we generally don't do public portion at work sessions,
I know.
but we understand you have an urgency, so.
Yeah,
We just, do we have to stamp these in?
a disaster, really.
Yeah, stamp them in.
You probably
I
do.
just need one to stamp in. You guys, she can
Thank
give
you,
just
Dave.
Well, I
one.
was hoping
just
they
need
could-
one day.
I wanted them to kind of look at it.
Yeah, no, they
Doesn't
can
matter.
look at them. I just need
No,
one.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
sorry.
Can you put your name, state your name for the record?
Yeah, why don't you sit
and-
down here
and-
for a second
yes.
and relax, and you can tell us
Yeah.
about the
I rushed
situation.
over.
Day Dayton, I'm president of Friends of the Long Pond Greenbelt. And I'm here because it's getting destroyed, basically. We've been trying to get the town to put a ranger in there to try to control this situation. But, obviously that's not happening. And now what's happened is all of the barricades, sorry.
We stopped them to get into with the locations, that's what we're talking
Okay,
about.
Long Pond Greenbelt, from Sag Harbor to Sagaponack. It's the nature preserve that's been preserved by Southampton Town, Suffolk County, and the Nature Conservancy because of how fragile and important it is, and for the rare animals and the rare plants. But what's happened now is it's not being protected, and the ATVs are ripping it up. And we had an Eagle Scout twice put, low barricades in. The signage is there at every entrance, but there's no enforcement. So
It's an issue.
it's really, what's happened now is they've ripped out every barricade. They're all gone. I just saw this yesterday because I led a hike 2 weeks ago, and the damage in 2 weeks was just amazing.
Did you have any
So-
conversations with the organizations that you listed? Did you tell them?
Yes, I'm on Nature Conservancy, I have the message into, but most of the trails are old trustee roads. And way back, when probably everyone's parents were the trustees here, they were declared passive. So they wouldn't allow any motorized vehicles in because the land was preserved. So there's Old Farm Road, Sprig Tree Path, Widow Gavitt's Road, Old Toll Booth Road. They had the barricades on them, and they're the major walking paths in there besides the old railroad spur. So I have a call into Kristen Doulos about that particular trail,
Right.
so that they might be able to help with those.
You notified chief of police?
I've talked to every chief of police for 30 years.
Yeah. How about we got a new chief.
Okay.
We have a new chief. There's a new chief in town, and I think that
Which
would be
one?
James Kiernan. We have an-
Unfortunately, they do try.
Right.
They're very understaffed. They're not permitted to chase bikes.
Right.
The success rate with having the police catch and confiscate a bike is very low.
Right. But what I would suggest we do is not put the cart before the horse, as they say. Let's have a conversation with the new chief, because even dispatch for trustees enforcement Marine Patrol goes through the police
Not-
department,
I'm
right?
not really asking for that,
Yeah.
asking for help putting the barricades back up.
Ah.
There's no Eagle Scouts that are
But I-
ready to do a
I
project.
get that, but the problem with that, and that's okay,
Mm.
marine maintenance can help out with that, you know, the possibility for that, but the thing is that if they just keep tearing them down.
That's true.
You still need to have consistency and enforcement. And once that message gets out, hey, this is what the occurrence is, if we catch you doing this, people may think twice about taking that chance, if there's a swift enough penalty for that. So I think you need a combination, but I would certainly think it's in the jurisdiction of the town, it's an enforcement issue, it's touching many different, you know, departments, agencies, organizations. We should at the very least talk to the new Chief Kiernan.
I will.
And then we could speak
I'll
to,
go there right now.
yeah, I mean, it's a great, you know,
And you know what else we could do? We could redesign the barriers to make them so they can't.
Well, I was
Take
gonna
them out.
suggest rather, we had low barriers, kind of rustic, but to put in the kissing gates, because that's a two-rail, split rail, you can walk easily around
It
it.
might
but-
be better off with like, you know, something what's bolted, something where.
Or a jersey barrier that is cement that you can
Yeah.
put there and make it more of a temporary, but if it's needed as a permanent, and to back it up with a couple of trail cams, which would
What's it called,
give
a
you
jersey?
Jersey,
The
barrier.
cement, they're like the cement thing, so you see it along.
you're not
like
moving them
that's
very
what's right.
easily.
Those are something that are not
You'd
going
be
to be,
surprised what they.
no, they're a couple thousand pounds.
Yeah, they're hard to.
Oh, well, that might be a little
Yeah,
more
the-
difficult.
yeah,
I
this
mean,
needs a
they're-
machine.
They're not the nicest looking, you know, apparatuses, but they would be very functional in the area that you're talking about, and you could walk around them and put some, and get a couple of trail cams, and you can at least identify the people. I mean, you can see them right on your phone with these trail cams, and at
I've
least.
taken pictures down to the police, but there's
But-
not really much they can do.
But
I
we have to be more proactive as far as what we can do on our board,
Okay.
you know, and I would say, putting the temporary jersey barriers there and trying to get
Does
this.
the-
Mike.
does the highway department have some we can call, maybe we can check.
We could speak to the deputy and see. They may
Who
have
is
some-
your staff that should be called if they go in there? Because, should we call the Marine or no?
If you call the
Just
police
call the
department,
police.
because they're dispatched from the police department.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I'm saying, everything, the genesis of this enforcement starts at that level. And, you know, when it's happening is the best time to notify. So if you have something that's going on,
We
just like.
call constantly.
Well, you call 911 or call the, you know, the police number. That way they can dispatch somebody.
728-3400.
400, exactly. But we should have a conversation with the chief as well, because he, you know, it's really his specialty.
It's code enforcement, the police department, and the parks rangers, so there's a bunch of
All of
people.
them.
And then Suffolk County has a couple of parks rangers
Exactly.
also, with their adjoining property, so
Yes.
if they were to do more of a group effort, like a sting operation,
They've done stings in the past, but everyone's always alerted. There's
Everyone's
never
alerted.
been a bike there ever.
Well, you know what, that's a double-edged sword, because what happens is like, we see that with illegal shell fishing. You know, with social media, you know, you'll get bombarded with stuff, but it goes in the other direction. As soon as somebody gets nabbed, that message goes out too.
Yeah.
So you, with a collaborative effort with the right people, perhaps we can do a better job on the enforcement. You know, we can deal with looking at barriers and having our folks take a look at barriers and what makes sense and what doesn't
If
make
the
sense.
layout, where do you want them? Make sure
How
you
many-
can get a truck down there.
How many entrances are there, Deb?
There's many entrances,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
can
But
you list
my
the ones that are
concern
the
is
most
that the turtles
used?
are gonna start laying eggs now, and it just wiped them out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can
that's
you
not good.
give us a list of
I can mark this up.
roads that are, give it downstairs to the,
Yeah, I'll take it to the thing, I'll
And,
just hook up.
so
Yeah,
we know where,
downstairs.
if we do put the Jersey barriers or something more substantial there, we know the areas that
Yeah,
need to
maybe
be
the
done.
Jersey berry should be on the outer, and then just on the inner, the hiking trails could be the.
Why don't you mark the points and then drop it off at our office, and then we'll take a look at it, and we'll speak to our folks. And if
Great.
you're out and about today, it can't hurt to have a conversation with the chief and let him know about the enforcement.
Well, also, has any outreach been done?
Okay, leave our sign-in sheet, please.
Oops. I'm shaking, I rushed so fast
You gotta
to
call
get over
code
here.
enforcement.
Has any outreach
Did I
been
finish?
done
No.
to the motorsports businesses?
We had, Fred Thiel, 20 years ago, passed a law that they had to put a sign up saying there's no legal place on Long Island to ride these bikes that you are. And when they moved to Wayne's-Skid, I went in and they didn't have it. So we made the sign for them. I gave it to a police officer. He took it there. I haven't gone back to see if it's still up. But that's really, I mean, it's the law that you can't ride on any public land on all of Long Island, only on private property with written permission in your pocket. But there's no enforcement, so it's just, you know it, they get on the LIPA line and they go, you know, all right, but then they go onto the trails, and it's very destructive. And in the past, it wasn't too bad because you talk to them and they'd be nice. Now, they try to run you over.
Well, it's a whole, yeah, it's
whole new
unfortunate.
world.
Yeah, fortunately, you're right. It is a whole new world right now. Unfortunately, you're correct. So,
Yeah,
listen, we'll all work together. We'll try and figure something out. here,
Great,
okay?
thank you. Before breeding, egg laying,
When is that?
June.
Soon.
2 weeks.
Go see the chief.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Dave.
Dave.
This down there.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Thanks.
You good? All right, so let's get into the general permit applications for determination. Trustee Pell.
The town of Southampton, Carl Road, McLean,
Is McLean here?
come on up. Sign in, and you have the floor. It's a project for the town of Southampton. We're gonna waive the permit fees on this too. Can you put the location up, please?
My name's Keith Masseria. I'm here on behalf of the Town of Southampton Highway Department. The project is located on Cobb Road, near the intersection of Flying Point Road. And what we're proposing is to replace the existing 12-inch clay pipe that runs underneath the roadway between two sides of Burnett's Creek with one larger 24-inch pipe. But to maintain the same flow that's currently going through there now, there's an upstream structure that has an orifice in it as 15 inches. But there will be some adjacent weir boards that will allow the highway department with flexibility of adjusting the water levels within the creek in conjunction with when Mecox Bay is either open or closed, so that they can maintain the same flows through the existing culvert. On the east side of the road, there's a replacement of 30 feet of bulkhead. On the west side of the road, there's installation of a riprap to stabilize the shoreline. And the whole roadway will get guide rail on either side to protect the motorists from running off into the waterway. And we're addressing some of the erosion that's occurring along the side of the road by filling it in, raising it up, putting down some topsoil and seed, and also some grasscrete pavers along the east side of the road.
Have you been in touch with Nature Conservancy for their right-size culvert program? I think that might be advisable, especially in this situation where Mecox Bay can go, I mean, there's probably a 2.5-foot range there at different points of the year.
So we did reach out to U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They didn't have anything particular to say about it.
Nature Conservancy
Nature
has a
Conservancy? Okay.
dedicated program for that. I think I have your information from,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
maybe we can be in touch about that. I'm happy to
Sure.
point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I was trying
For
to
that.
find someone who had some input on that, so
Okay.
that'd be great.
Yeah, well, yeah, so you're using all Blue Book compliant material, is this, I'm just going through your file now, in terms of the type of sheathing that you're gonna use for this bulkheading and all the timbers
Yeah,
and,
vinyl sheeting, Greenheart wales, Greenheart top cap. There's the concrete pipe and a concrete structure on the west side of the roadway.
And the valve what regulates the water, how are you gonna be doing that again?
There's not going to be a check valve or anything like that, but on the upstream side, built into the concrete structure, there'll be some timber weir boards that will
Oh, you
be
can
able to
take
be
it out.
removed.
Similar to what's there now.
Yeah, so someone, I guess, like, keeps, like, blocking it up. So we're going to build something so that the town can regulate it themselves. So there'll be like some anti-tampering device so that the homeowners can't just come and jam like a piece of plywood in there or something like that. So it's going to be more able to be regulated by the town rather than like.
Because we have, like, in the springtime, we have migrating fish will go up in there.
Yeah.
So that's why we have this low-flow orifice.
Yes.
Will allow a constant flow, maintaining.
Just like a fish ladder, very similar.
Yeah.
It's
Fish ladder.
It's a fish ladder. It's another name for a fish ladder.
Yeah.
So like elwars and river herring, when they're going up
Can
there
you
to
put that
spawn, that they can go,
What's that?
sit at
fish
the
ladder?
pool and then gently flow, the gentle
think
flow
there's
of
a
water, they can go
diagram.
through it.
Right. So we've designed a few fish ladders, so we took our experience with that, was generally like a flat 24-inch pipe roughly.
Well, didn't
Good
you
enough
do
to
the
get
one
them
for
through.
the town or the, up on the Peconic River also?
Yep,
Working with Chesterfield?
Chesterfield, we did
yeah.
Upper Mills, Forge
Yes.
Road,
I have all those plans.
yeah.
And when
Yes.
would you be planning on doing this project? How far on?
I mean, at this rate, we don't have any permits in place,
It's gonna take a while.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe like
It'd be-
6 months from
It'd be
now.
probably best
At
if it
least.
was done like,
In the fall?
in the,
After
end of
spring.
summer, fall, after the fish have migrated up there and spawned and,
Get back.
have the least negative environmental impacts.
Right.
And one thing that I would very much recommend is get the current elevation of the current pipe, not to make it any lower, because if you make it lower, then the stream bed above it could drain out even further, and you'd lose that habitat. Right now, it seems to be a nice balance, other than the debris that's put into this pipe. You know,
Right.
and, there's a certain ethnic group that goes down there and they like catching the carp, and they kind of like dam it off to the carp conjugated by the pipe there.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we did survey the inverts, and we're planning to maintain the same invert. Obviously, we're going for 24-inch pipes, so it'll be a little taller,
Yeah.
but the bottom will remain the same.
Good.
Did you look at alternatives to bulkhead there?
So the one side, we were thinking about doing a bulkhead, so the alternative to that on the
East side?
west side, I think, we chose to do the stone. The east side, it's very vertical, and anything that we do with stone will either,
Tumble.
it would have to go out into the waterway, which we thought that the DEC and Army Corps would probably object to, so we went with the bulkhead there. And if we maintain the same toe slope and have it slope up back to the road, it's gonna wind up being too close to where the guide rail is. So that's why we would like to go with bulkhead on that
And
side.
and there is a wave fetch from the easterly
Right.
winds, so, which would cause erosion in that area.
What's the span of the bulkhead then on the east side?
It's only 30 feet, and there's an existing timber bulkhead there now, so
Right.
we're just replacing.
Right, so you're not
place.
expanding it.
Right, yep.
It's just in the
And
area
it continues
that's right around the
beyond,
culvert.
yeah, and it continues almost the whole length of the road, but our opinion is that this 30 feet is the only area that really needs one. The rest at this point is like a 12-inch drop-off, if that, so I don't even think,
It's pretty stable.
yeah, in the future, you may not even have to replace that, the rest of the bulkhead.
Just
do the
leave it
small
there and
piece.
let it deteriorate naturally, and it'll be like a low sill bulkhead
Yep.
and maintain the shoreline behind it.
Exactly.
Sounds like a sensible plan.
I think we should put on a cover, the dates when you could do it.
Yeah, I would, I would,
Something like-
definitely not in the springtime when the fish are migrating.
Like
in.
September through February or March.
Yeah, that'd probably make the most sense.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
you know,
time
it's-
frame.
I do have a general question, and I guess it pertains to this project amongst others, but does the guide rail have to be untreated lumber, or can that be treated? Like, given the proximity
Is
to the
it out of
water?
our jurisdiction? That's the question.
It's not like in the water, it's
That's
adjacent.
how far away is it?
10 feet back
It's
from the water?
within, yeah, like 10 feet.
It's 10 feet or more?
No, I'd say it's less than 10
It's
feet.
less than
Less
Yeah.
than 10 feet.
Then it has to be non-treated.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify,
As
because
the
we do a
current
lot of
regu-
these, I just want to
Right,
make
as
sure.
the current regulation reads,
Yeah,
Okay.
Unless you can come up with some other type, some other type of material.
material.
Yeah, do some research and see if you can come up with another product that, other than,
Yeah.
treated lumber, and, there are plastics, there are fiberglasses, there are composites out there that, I don't know if they're structurally enough to hold the guardrail, but if you could come up with something, it would help everybody.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because I know at Quantuck, Quantuck Creek, we did that, and it gets obviously pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to do some research on that because I think the process has changed on some of this material. And we really need to,
Look at it.
Yeah, we need to take a look at it to see what, what
I mean,
makes sense.
there is a product out there, and we did look at it many years ago. It was, treated lumbers, CCA or ACQ, whatever lumber it would be, wrapped with like a composite material or fiberglass. I've seen that on a couple of docks in other towns,
Encapsulated.
encapsulated.
Yeah, we've done that for like a like whale or something.
Yeah.
Right,
like
so,
that.
because it's a discussion that goes on.
Goes on
about-
for hours.
Yeah, it goes on for hours about, depleting the rainforest of tropical hardwoods, and
Right.
is it really, with the process that they use today for the more locally sourced woods, is it, really the right decision to do? So I think there really needs to be some more research on that. We're concerned about shellfish and things bioaccumulating in the environment and then ultimately into ourselves.
Right.
But I think, it's a broader discussion, as Trustee Pell said, it goes on for a long period of time, but it does warrant looking at, because some materials further back, like you say, they're not directly in the water, may be more suitable, and may not, have any issue.
You might be better off using like
Yes.
I-beam and then put wood on top.
Right, okay. Yeah, we'll look into different options then.
Yeah.
If you go down to, Bay Avenue in East Quogue, where there was a project done, you could take a look at some guardrail material that was done.
That was us as well. I think that was Greenheart, though.
That was Greenheart, so
Yeah.
you should go
Yeah.
take a look at that and see, that was how many years ago now? So you should take a look and see how that's holding up,
Right,
and then use that perhaps as a little bit of a test case.
okay.
Because that's what you're talking about, similar to
Yeah,
here, right?
exactly.
So I would go down there and take a look and see how it's holding up, and see if you think that's a, good for the long haul, or you think there's some other idea.
Well, that's a good point. If it lasts for a really long time, then.
Yeah.
Right, so take a look at that, it's not, not that far.
Right, right.
Although the traffic was like an hour today, so it's not that
Yeah.
far, but it could take a long time.
Right.
But definitely do that.
Okay.
So James, all we needed, they have stamp plans and everything,
We
right?
don't have stamp plans yet.
So you
He
need,
he could stand.
you need a stamp plan to readmit, then we'll, on a cover sheet, we'll put the condition on about the time frame. And then we'll waive all fees from the trustees.
You
You have
just
the
don't wanna-
DEC permit yet, or no?
No, we're still waiting on everything at this point. We're getting comments back at this point.
Okay.
Still a little early.
Right. So there's no rush on this, but
No,
in spirit, we're
not really.
good. I think you could do a little bit more due diligence on that rail situation.
So next time they'll come back, if there are any, I think the only DEC comments would probably be with the fish and the fisheries and stuff like that. So we could, which we
Yeah, I'm
already
expecting
discussed.
that we'll probably get something like that.
So,
You
yeah,
change the ladder or something.
yeah. All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Yep, no problem.
You would advancing for plans, or waiting for DEC?
Waiting
or
for
waiting
I'm gonna wait for the DEC
Yeah,
comment.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, things could change a little.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let's just put it on hold. It was a good
Yeah.
conversation. You got a couple of things to look at, and we'll refine it over the next, whatever, few weeks, a month.
Sounds good.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
And if things change, on the urgency side, obviously, get a hold of us, because in spirit, the project's a good project. We want to see it
It's not,
advance.
it's not going anywhere, Scott.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you, appreciate it.
599 Meadow Lane, Jeff Payne Jr., William J. Williams.
That's a good idea.
To construct a 4-foot wide, 160-foot long fixed catwalk with a 4x12 T section at the end, with a 4-foot wide, 6-foot long steps to the water. Can you put this location up, please?
Yep.
Go ahead, you have the floor.
Good morning. This application is nothing more than just legalization of the as-built rope handrails. It's a double rope handrail that was installed on the dock. Submission included photos of it. This was previously approved, the project, built in accordance with the approved plans, and unbeknownst to them, when they built it, they put in handrails. The owner himself, William Williams, is near blind, and they're both fairly elderly, so they need the handrails to gain safe access out to the end of the pier.
So it's rope then
Yeah,
that's
it's
rope. Yeah,
strung
just
in
two
between the
rows of rope, yeah.
stanchions?
Simple handrail.
It's nice.
Okay.
Looks nautical. I have no problem.
Okay.
Someone's phone is ringing.
Is that you?
No,
So,
Sorry, Charles.
mine's off.
Nobody here?
I don't think it's mine. Okay, nothing.
so, we just need stamps on this, then we can advance it.
Stamped, and what type of stamp? A PE stamp? Or
Yeah, professional engineer or
Just for this. yeah.
architect.
Okay,
Yep.
And that's, you all set.
okay, thank you.
Just hand it in. Ten Land's End, DKR Shores.
Morning.
How are you?
Hey, Junior.
Okay. Here to represent Joyce Roblin, 10 Land's End Lane. It's a bulkhead reconstruction, typical, still updated, not in great shape. And it's pretty standard with all the other ones I did on that side of the road as well. She would like, she's going to do restore the area with like-kind species, beach grass at the very least. It'll be the same height, vinyl sheet piling, match into the neighbors.
So can I see it?
It's,
She'll have to put a return definitely on the one side, but I always plan on that.
It's a little creosote.
I cleaned it up a lot now.
Yeah, looks like it's falling in, Billy.
It is, it's really
Yeah.
bad. It's pretty dangerous right now.
It's been fixed a few years ago.
It's pretty standard.
You might just want to get a ladder along that bulkhead somewhere.
I'll mention it to her. You know, sometimes we just like pop in those swimming pool ladders, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
and you
all,
could
just
just
in case
remove
someone
it
falls in the
on.
water.
It's pretty easy, you just drill 2 holes.
It's a long ways to swim in that canal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
so-
not even I mean, she's not really even a boater, but.
No, but
Yeah, but if some kid is down there
Yeah.
fishing or
Yes.
grabbing and falls
Yeah.
in, it's,
the bottom's half mud and half sand. And then-
Right. I'll mention it to her, definitely. Let her.
Okay, you good?
Just need stamp plans.
I will, now that my computer's fried because the dog ate the cord
The dog ate the
this
cord?
morning. Yeah. I'm like,
Is
I
the
know
dog
that you
okay?
asked it. Dog's fine, dog's fine.
Give the dog some bones.
So I had to order like on Amazon, like a new power supply.
Better if the dog ate the homework
And all
rather
my
than the
CAD
cord.
files are on my computer, so I'll get it to you as soon as possible, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Right. I know, right? I can't make it.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Trustee Warner.
yep. We have an application here for Charles Seaman, 27A Gardner's Lane, dredge 15 cubic yards of sand off of a launching ramp. He's done this for many years. It's, the next door neighbor has a beach with no bulkhead, so the sand just piles up on the launching ramp. It's a simple scoop it out. It's all clean sand, so does anybody have any questions about it?
Yeah, he's done that several times. He's
Yeah,
has no
he's
choice.
he's had a permit there for the last like
Right.
15 years.
And what does he do with the sand? It just goes right,
It's all clean white beach sand, and he gives it away to someone along there that's, uses it for their, beaches or whatever. There's no contaminants or anything in it. It's
Clear sand.
It's good sand. We can use it at some of our road ends that are getting eroded.
I would advance it.
Okay.
No brainer.
And we have an application application here for Brian O'Donohue, 17 Common Point, First Coastal.
See Billy Mack's here.
Monday.
Happy
Billy
Monday.
Mack, First Coastal. How's everybody?
Good, how are you?
Good.
It's to construct a new 4-foot by 4-foot platform, a 4-foot by 5-foot stairs, and a 4-by-8 landing with a 4-by-4 stairs to the beach. No treated lumber, open grading will be used for this platform. It's and landing and treads. It's basically replacing what was there prior to a storm that happened this past winter. It was washed away, so he's replacing it.
Yeah, and this time we're building it with through-flow decking, so it will handle the storm surge a little better.
Hopefully better.
Yeah, it's all untreated material, and it's just a safer way to get down.
How are the fasteners that working out with this roof flow decking?
It's not bad.
Yeah.
You know,
is
they're
it-
stainless steel.
Using the standard stuff that comes, or?
They supply their special screws, because they fit in those little grooves.
And the ones that they supply, you feel are working out well with the surge, or?
They're working out a while. Yeah, we haven't had any problem with that. You know, it's better than decking wood, because the water obviously goes.
No, I've heard it, not so much that, just the fasteners. I've heard
The
some
fasteners?
issues relative to the fasteners not, holding up. But that's why I'm asking if,
The
when you
sta-
get into that situation.
Stainless, they're self-tapping.
Yeah.
I've used them, they work very well. They don't split the lumber.
Yeah.
And they have a pretty large head on them, so they do hold up with the, and there's,
Yeah.
on like a 5-foot section of it, I believe there's like 10 fasteners, so, you get quite a
We
bit of
usually
gripping.
pre-drill it, because we do find that they do, especially on the ends with the green heart,
Yeah.
it splits.
Yeah.
So we pre-drill just to
Some
avoid
folks have said
that.
where they're using it as capping, where you got the
Uh-huh.
extruded in and out, where you get that surge up and down.
Yeah,
that-
on the edge of a
that the-
bulkhead-like thing, yeah.
Right, that the
Yeah.
material itself held up, but there was some issue.
Get ripped out. I could see that. They're tiny little,
Well, that's
they're-
why I'm asking.
They're 6 and 8s, they're tiny. So,
That's why I was asking,
Yeah.
because that's the one thing, that I've heard,
Mhm.
was that maybe they
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
tweak the fastening somewhere differently.
That may not be a bad idea.
But just
I mean, for most applications like docks and walkway steps, things like that, they're fine. But a bulkhead cap that gets that vertical thrust from,
Right,
Right,
that's why I was asking, because,
Yeah.
we like to utilize that material,
Yep.
but that's
Yeah,
been
it's
a bit of a weakness, just on that fastening
agree.
point, so.
I would agree
That's
with
all,
that.
just bringing it up.
I mean,
Okay.
there are different fasteners you can use with larger heads and
Yeah,
longer.
you could go
You just have to
deeper,
drill.
deck
Yeah.
screws type thing.
Yeah.
Like real deck screws.
Yeah.
Good.
That's all you have today?
That's all I got.
All right, so nothing more, so we can
So we
get
just
you.
need stamp plans?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
We should be able to move this along.
All right.
Thank you.
Get you on your
very
way.
much. Enjoy.
Okay, Bill.
Common Point Drive, LLC 35 Common Point Drive. I believe the owner's here to represent the project.
Good morning.
Morning.
Dr. Woodrow, how are you doing today?
Good, good. Anyway, thank you for the time. This is a proposal to
You have
put
to-
a...
Excuse me, you have to sign in and state your name,
Uh,
please.
Okay.
For the record.
People want to
Should
know
know
who you are.
We're very professional here.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay. Okay. My name is Dr. Joseph Murdo. We put a proposal in for a dock 4 feet wide by 144 feet. The tops are going to be composite or aluminum, as the plan says, and the legs are going to be pretty much all galvanized.
Is this going to be a permanent dock or a seasonal dock like the one that's on your property next door?
Yeah, it's seasonal,
Okay,
Seasonal dock.
yeah.
just like there's a couple of them in the area.
Yes, yes. 2 on the left of us and 1 on the right.
It's gonna kind of match those?
Yes, pretty much, yes. They're all, the one on the left is aluminum, the one on the right is aluminum, so.
The couple questions that I went over with James is, the adjoining property, which is yours now currently, has a dock on it, and it's right on the property line. So how, this is a legal question for Mark. The dock that's to the left there, that's right on the adjoining property line, and, how's that going to affect as far as the 10-foot setback and our regulations?
Well, that, we don't have that piece that extends on the right, so we just have the sort of U-shaped dock,
Okay.
which is over 10 feet from the line.
So that's compliance.
It is over 10 feet?
Yeah.
Because when I scale it out, it wasn't, am I correct, James?
I can't tell from this.
You're talking just the U piece, not the float.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no float.
So how wide was that float on the plan that was there?
That had to be at least, that was, I believe, 6 feet.
So 6 feet, so I see what you're saying.
So you have to,
Could
the
we
trouble
show,
is, if we let you have this other dock and you have a permit for that float there, you could go put that float back. What Ed's, I think, trying to say, and you said there's no float there, so you have to limit date from that permit. That way the float won't be there.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, there is also, where it starts, 10 feet from the property looks
Yeah.
fine, but as it forks out.
Get closer.
It gets closer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would be more comfortable if the right end of the U were also 10 feet from the property line.
Yeah.
Right, but we're not working on
With
that
no
right now.
float.
are we?
No.
We're not, but how does it affect this one if we're going to be, it's
That's
in
the question.
Common Point, it's going to be a highly constrained
Right,
area.
right.
There are already more than several docks there.
So that's a good Mark question.
So we could, the proposed float on the proposed dock now could be on the right side, if that would make a difference. We have no preference whether it's on the left or the right side. I mean, if that helps.
You don't have a proposed float on this application,
That's one in the picture.
but you have it on the survey and the plans. This proposed float is not in your description,
Right, that's,
and
Right.
it's too large anyway.
yeah, right. So you'd have to, right, so you're gonna have to amend that to fit the Blue Book, which is what, 6 by 20? So we would have
I
to,
believe it is 10 by 20, or we can make it 6. No,
Six.
I'm sorry, it's 10 by 30.
right, so we'd have to go to the Blue
10
Book
by 20.
regulation, right?
Looks 10 by 20.
That's
No,
10
10 by 20.
Yeah, so you'd have to go to 6 by 20.
That's not a problem.
And
Right?
you have to bring
Yeah.
it back to 2.5 feet of water.
Right,
It
so.
needs to be in two and
so
a half feet of water, and it can't be beyond 135 feet,
I can't,
because that's
What's-
the pier,
what does-
that's the pier line.
right, so we could go out as far in the Blue Book to 135.
Okay.
And the regulations are 6 by 20. So we'd have to just amend the plan to the 135, cut the proposed float back to a 6 by 20. And then your suggestion about perhaps on the other side, does that give more relief?
Well, I mean, it's a highly constrained area. I mean, James, can you bring up a GIS of the
Scale it
area?
out. Yeah, there you go.
And all of those properties along there all have docks.
Right.
So this will be the only property without a dock, so it's really,
So now he'll have a dock.
we'll have two docks, one on
Well-
a vacant property and one on his property that has a
Right,
home.
but they're not merged, they're two separate
No, they're two separate
properties.
properties, right?
So then,
Yes,
okay, so then
yes.
it'll be 1 and 1, because they're two separate properties, so is he meeting the Blue Book test, so it's too long and the dock's too big, so we would have to shorten it to 6 by 20 and then take it back to the pier line, and then
Right.
make sure it meets all the setbacks.
and what about pass and repass?
Well, there's plenty of beach above it for pass and repass,
There is,
yes.
so it comes down to the
Yeah,
beach
there's about
then?
50 feet of beach behind it,
Oh,
sandy
yes.
beach.
It comes down
Sure.
to, there's a ramp down to the beach and then,
Yeah, above
There's
that,
beach
just,
above it.
it's all flat sand.
So,
I mean, if it would help, because it's a float, if we didn't put the float, that means we could go 144
you
feet.
can't go past that
135.
pier line. because it's a regulation. So we can't violate our own regulation. So you could do the float, you just gotta get it to the the maximum float size per regulation for your application,
Right.
which is a 6x20, so.
Okay, but if we didn't do the float, the proposed thing is 144 feet, and you're saying you can't do that?
It's violating,
Too long.
yeah.
Pier
so-
line just means length
So-
of
so-
the structure.
Right, so
From the mean high water mark seaward.
Right,
So
okay.
to get it to where it's compliant with everybody else, you'd have to make those changes.
Okay, not a problem. 135 feet.
Yep.
6 by 20.
Yep,
From mean high water. You know what might
2.5
help?
feet of water.
You know what might help too?
How do we, there's more than 2.5 feet, but
You're
how do I
supposed to be-
verify?
Well, you're supposed to get a hydrographic
Yeah.
survey. I saw some
think-
numbers on here, but I
Yeah.
couldn't make it out with these glasses.
Yeah,
I can't,
it's-
Faded.
Looks like around here is 2.5.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent along.
it's consistent.
So he can shorten that back.
I mean, why do you, if you're meeting the required depth,
You can move it
you
back.
could actually save yourself a lot of money and shorten it, because if you're meeting the depth tests earlier and you're not gaining anything by going further, I can't make those numbers out, but
No, I can't either.
I see 2.5 or 2 and 2.5. Like,
you know what I'm saying? See, we generally look
Yeah,
to get to the float at 2.5, and then you're good. And then if you got it all
Can you see
consistent
it on the
beyond
paper
that,
book there, Ed?
there's no
Yeah,
huge
I-
benefit to going farther,
I
you're wasting
have
money.
no problems.
So why don't you-
Yeah.
That's
Why don't you
the
just shorten it to the
2.5,
2.5?
Yeah.
To where you hit 2.5, save the money because you're achieving the goal you need to achieve, and then just get your float down to the regulation 6x20 and call it a day.
And then you still have the 2 tie-off poles. Are you gonna,
If you could see that, that's where the 2.5 goes out.
and maybe you can have,
And it's even before.
in
This?
Yes.
Yeah, if you put the
James,
float on the
James.
end of the dock,
Yeah.
Then you'll be meeting the.
and then you could put the then it'll be
Yeah.
less.
Why don't you do that?
That's fine.
Then you'll meet all the Blue Book regulations, you're not wasting money, you're achieving your goals on depth, you know.
Okay. All right, so this is all new for me, so.
No,
we have to amend the
it's
plan.
a
Another one of
work
these with
session.
the- where you
That's
can
what it's
see
for.
things.
I'm gonna ask him for it.
Okay.
So you'd amend the plan so that you cut it back to where the inner terminus of that float would be at 2.5.
Yeah, can you provide a survey with clearer water depths on it? Because it's really, I mean, it's.
I have it. It's a
Well,
clearer.
we don't have it. You
Okay.
might, we need it, you can't really even make
So-
them out.
Right, so when you cite this on the next plan coming in,
I see.
have them clear that up.
You
so
mean
that-
these numbers right here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that way you know
Water depth.
you get the 2.5,
Okay.
which is where you want to be, right? Because you're going to have to roll back in with a new plan anyway. Just have them clean that up, and then you go from there.
Right, we're going with 6 by 20 and 135 feet or less.
Or less,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you should really just stop it at where you hit the 2.5.
Well, it's
Yeah.
135.
Because you're not gonna
it's
achieve
100
anything
It's
more.
135 feet, the outer terminus of the whole project.
Right.
It's the fixed pier or
The float.
aluminum, the ramp, and the float.
The whole thing.
The whole, the longest
Okay.
point of everything.
Would it help to have the extended property lines drawn as
Well,
well?
he's in the middle on this one, right? You're way
Yeah.
off on this one.
No, for the adjacent property that you
Well,
were.
we're not contending,
working on that.
we're not working on that one, that's where, so, that's where we could, yeah. So is that good, James? All right.
We good?
We're clear?
All
right.
If you have questions, you can
Thank
call
you.
James.
Wonderful day.
Right?
Yes.
You can call the
too.
office if you have questions. If there's
Right.
confusion.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank
for coming.
you.
What else you got here?
That's it for me, Scott.
That's it?
Yep, me. 471, Sagaponic Road, Growly Pond, and Consultants. Hey, Susanna.
This is Ann.
To you too. Okay, this is an application for Phragmites cutting in Sag Pond. Do you want to expand upon that?
Yeah, so the previous owner had been cutting the Phragmites with no permits for years. And when they went to put it on the market, we realized that this wasn't legal. So several years, well, I guess 2018, 5 years ago, They got permits from the Conservation Board to cut just part of the property, sort of as a pilot program with administrative conservation, or administrative wetlands permit with Marty Shea. We worked together to come up with a scheme, the best way to cut the Phragmites, and the portion that's seaward of mean high water is in trustees' jurisdiction. So this board issued a permit in 2018, and then we've renewed it ever since. So this is a new permit because unfortunately, we let it lapse after it was cut in the fall. So, so we're in for a new permit for the same project that they've been doing for the last 5 years.
That's just a picture of the site
Okay.
with it showing.
Yeah, I meant to bring pictures. I took some recent
There-
ones. I don't know if I submitted recent ones.
It doesn't show the cut area
Yeah, so
versus.
it looks great. The hibiscus machutos, the swamp rose mallow is coming back. Soft rush is coming back. It's an excellent candidate for Phragmites cutting in this area because they have been cutting it, and it's been done for years. And so now you have a lot of the seeds and the little bitty ferns growing up underneath the Phragmites. So when we cut the Phragmites, those native plants are given a chance to grow and succeed, and it's working out really well.
Just want to do it legally.
Right.
Have
Right.
you?
So it's been done legally for the last 5 years.
But I mean,
Since-
continued.
Continue. We'd like to continue. And I would love to ask if there's any way we can get a permit for a
Expand.
longer period.
Well,
We would love to expand.
we don't have, there's no mechanism in our blue book for that, so that's why we have the
Yeah.
4 additional renewals.
Right.
That's how you expand for the longer period of time. We don't,
Okay. It's
that would
just-
be something that doesn't exist right now.
All right. I just thought I would ask, just because it's a hassle to keep coming
Well,
back every year.
not to say that couldn't happen, in the future, but that's not anything that we could deal
Yeah,
with.
but it's nice getting an update on
Yeah,
the
it
site
keeps-
and how it's, working,
Okay.
If we give
way
a
to
10-year
monitor.
permit, and we,
Right.
it could be a disaster, and we wouldn't know in 10 years, and all of a sudden,
That, understood. I mean,
that-
they're doing a good job.
Right.
They could hire a contractor or landscaper who goes in and does a bad job, and we would want to keep track of that.
That's why we did it as a permit and 4 renewals.
And that's why the Conservation Board, or Marty Shea, it's an administrative permit, so it doesn't go to the whole board. That's why it was done sort of just a section of the property, and we're hoping next year to expand it to a larger portion of the property.
That's what I was going to
Right.
ask was, because it's working so well, I don't know if all of you saw the pictures, but it's working really well on that west side of the property, so.
And that was the goal, to demonstrate that that it would work, and then we could expand it to the other side of the property.
We've seen it in multiple projects now, both on Mecox and on SAG, that the cutting of Phragmites is really beneficial,
Good.
just for the
Because
whole ecology of the system.
there was a point in time that consultants were coming in there, and they were cutting the Phragmites, and they were wicking Roundup, and so, we've come a long ways from this. That's why I said having a review over it and
Right.
know what's going on. The methodology that you use at the time might not be the most practical. I mean, I'd hate to give a 10-year permit for Roundup being put on this, so,
Understood. And here they're just cutting
yeah.
2 times a year to 6 inches by hand.
Mhm.
It's a unique situation because it was cut previously, so the Phragmites is not that strong, and you do have the other native plants coming in.
Good.
And I'm
Sounds-
going to be coming in very shortly for next door, the property next door. They've seen what's going on here, and they want to see the same results at their property as
Good.
well.
Good.
I'll see you soon for that.
Great.
You have other things here, huh?
Rob just has one thing that you're just waiting for
That's-
stamped plans.
Yeah, that's further down, so we don't,
Yeah,
yeah, that's it. But for the regular bulk of the meeting, you're pretty much.
I think
it.
that's all I have today.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right.
great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. I'd like to move this forward then, please, James.
Thank you.
Christopher J. Witt, 125 Temple Avenue.
Morning.
Morning.
Sorry, Charles.
I'm here for a modification. This permit was approved, and when I went to pick it up, we learned that the language in my description wasn't changed to reflect the requests that you all made when I made the changes. Additionally, there was a problem with the scale on my survey, which was updated and provided to the trustees. So my general application cover sheet is reworded to match the drawings and what you approved.
James?
Yeah, you guys had approved a walkway, ramp, and a float. You brought it back from, I think it was at like 4.5 feet of water. You had them bring it back to 2.5 feet of water and then approved the dock, but the dock never got changed in the application cover sheet, so he's here to modify that.
Bill?
Yeah, the permit issued at 100 feet, and it should be, what, 131 feet?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yep. So it's just really a correction of the prior permit. Anything else? That's it, right?
Yep, he meets the 2.5 feet of water, so he's good.
Sounds
You
Good.
can move to advance it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And he has stamp plans, so we'll advance it with.
Okay,
Appreciate that.
sounds good, James.
Next, we have Christopher Jones, 916 Flanders. Jeff Pitanjo.
Morning again. And we have Chris Jones, the owner of the property as
You
well.
gotta sign, gotta sign it, please.
Apologies for last month, we didn't know there was.
Okay.
Okay, what are we here for?
So we're here today for the modifications to our proposed plan for 916 Flanders Road, which includes a total length of 77-foot long proposed pier, a fixed pier with no floating docks, just steps down to a lower portion. This was a carryover from last month's work session where you guys requested to shorten the pier length. So we provided amended plans to reflect all the comments that we heard at the meeting.
I'm not sure if the cover sheet matches, because I think the cover sheet still says 90. James, you might just want to
You
check
have
that.
updated paperwork, James?
Cover sheet says 4 foot wide by 77 foot long,
It does? That-
fixed pier.
Then the,
April 24th, 2023, that was stamped in.
I must not have the right one on here.
yeah, so it's, I'm sure there's a more recent one.
I have it in the original.
You have yours, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a more recent one, just the one that was pulled up.
Which one?
The project
It's in there.
includes the construction of a 4 foot wide by 77 long fixed pier supported with 6 by 6 inch green heart posts, all timber to be untreated and dock to have through flow decking on the entire surface. A seasonally aluminum ladder will be installed on the seaward end and up and over steps to be installed on both sides of the pier to allow unrestricted access over pier. That's a description.
This project went through multiple revisions back and forth with not only the trustees as well as the New York State DEC. So this is something that right now I'll have to check to see if we have a DEC permit, but if we don't, I think we do have one. We do have a DEC
It's
permit.
matching to this latest
Yeah.
plan, so we don't have another modification
Yes.
coming up.
Yeah.
What were their concerns?
The property line setbacks, so we made sure we have 10 foot off the property line in both directions. And they also, originally this extended out quite a bit further to have a floating dock with fixed, with chalk floating dock, similar to the neighbor that I happen to do to the, just to the east. So they didn't want that due to the water depth there, so we shortened it up and made it a fixed dock.
Okay.
It's compliant, right, James?
Yeah.
Meeting all blue book, no issues?
Good to go.
All right.
Move to advance it.
Does he have stamp plans in there?
I believe.
I don't know, please.
Is your internal file not up to date?
It's not up to date.
I will have to make sure we get that up to date.
Did you submit stamp plans or no? Not yet?
No.
Okay,
So
so
we're gonna
we'll
need
need stamp plans.
You'll need stamp plans.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Nope, okay, so we just need stamp plans.
Okay.
Matching, everything matching, and then we'll check it over.
Based on my last application for 599 Meadow, we were unaware that you needed to get a permit for the rope railings. We'd like to amend the application at this point, and we could provide revised plans to include a rope railing.
The neighbor's dock,
So you want to do this as the rope?
something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so it looks the same.
Right, so you got to amend your plan.
Yes. Amend the
Yep,
plan, amend the
amend-
cover sheet, and get your signed and sealed
Yep.
plans.
You're all stamped.
Yes,
Okay,
perfect.
sounds
It
good.
all matches, and when the inspector goes down there, he's not scratching his head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, apologies about it.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
You too.
Next is 21 Sandpiper Court LLC.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we're here before you today, we're requesting to propose a low sill bulkhead with 16-foot returns at Mr. Norocki's property. He's the only person on his side of the property that doesn't have a bulkhead. Therefore, it's eroding not only his property, but it's starting to affect his neighbors as well. Part of our application, we did submit letters from all of the neighbors around the canal supporting the application. And I welcome any questions that you guys
You have those
have.
letters? You have them?
Yep.
Are they notarized?
No, I don't think so.
Did you consider alternatives to a bulkhead
Yeah,
worst scenario?
if I can, I'd like to give these to you, because I don't know if it's part of the application.
You just have to
The letter I
stamp.
didn't, that you wrote, I didn't
Yeah,
want that.
it's,
Please, can
it's
we stamp
basically a,
one?
it's basically a summary letter of the property. If you want me to summarize it verbally, my wife and I, we bought the property 5.5 years ago. When we bought the property, the wetlands were not in compliance. In fact, the property was not in compliance up until last summer. Well, it became in compliance in January of this year. I worked all summer to get it in compliance with Marty Shea to set the boundary for the wetland and to get everything all set. The one problem we have is the shoreline, which continues to erode. When I was speaking to Marty Shea, I was asking, are there any, because we had been speaking to people about getting a bulkhead, and everyone was saying, no, the town's not gonna approve it, and it's impossible, and this and that. So I was like, well, what alternatives do I have? Because the land is eroding, at a pretty alarming rate. It's like about a foot a year right now. We did have the koi logs treatment of the shoreline, which did nothing.
They tried that a few years back, and...
Yeah, permit for that?
Yeah, there was a permit for that.
It was permitted with, with the trustees. It was done, and there was...
I was gonna say, we have
He's got
pictures
trees falling into...
that we submitted with the application
Canal.
showing.
So my cause for alarm right now is I have 4 cedar trees where half of the roots are exposed already, ready to fall into the canal. And I have 2 pine trees. One of them is really tall, that's also leaning and ready to fall into the canal.
And some large backrest bushes also with, again, the same half of the roots exposed because of the...
I went and visited the property during the storm.
The tide event.
Yeah, that was a crazy...
High tide event, you can call it.
Yeah.
And it severely eroded, and it's getting worse.
So when I spoke to or tried to get expert opinions, the opinion was that a low sill bulkhead was something that the town was starting to adapt and to accept. And my idea is I like my wetlands, believe it or not, I love it. because I have all the trees and I have birds and I have, like a really nice backyard, but it is like gonna turn into a wasteland if I don't fix it.
James, do you have an overhead view of the area?
And what Kate had said, we are on that side of the canal, we are the only house without a bulkhead. Every single house has a bulkhead.
It looks like for most of the,
Yeah, the entire canal on.
On that
Yeah.
side.
Now, the other side was propagated as a wetlands, the other side of the canal. So all the houses that were built on that side were always propagated as a wetland, so that they look fine. And they're not really subject to the erosion that our house is, because our house was basically a dirt ledge that just continues to move back. And based on the fact of where my neighbors' bulkheads are, where our property line used to be, or at least where the end of the wetland used to be, we're at least 6 foot back already, right now.
so, I was going to say, this board has not permitted new bulkheading, low sill or otherwise, in decades.
No, we've done low sills.
We've done low sill bulkheads on dredge canals.
New,
Yes,
Yeah.
we have done
Yes.
low
Two or
sills.
three.
Yeah,
so,
that we have done.
okay.
Standard bulkheads,
So-
we,
Not standard
My-
height ones, but we've done low sills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my thought, so low sill aside, my thought would be what has been investigated that would be a greener alternative to a low sill bulkhead. So living shorelines run the gamut from gray structure to green, so more nature-based solutions that in many places are a better alternative to bulkheads. You have no fetch here at all. Fetch means wind over water, so there's no wave action in your bulkheaded canal. And I'm just looking at, for you to seek other alternatives. We understand that your property's eroding, and we do understand that you are in between two bulkheaded pieces, but we would like you, or at least I would like you, if possible, to look at a living shoreline as an alternative. There was a property not far from you, actually, that was also in a similar situation where a bulkheaded piece was just to the west, and there was erosion on the marsh, and a living shoreline has been very effective there. Are you familiar with living shorelines?
We've tried it.
No, so not core logs, like a different scenario.
Yeah, I know, I can't tell you how many times our shoreline's been replanted. It doesn't get a chance to like really get back because of the, I'm not an expert at it because, obviously, I don't know too much about it. Only what I know from observations, but between the highs and the lows of the tides, it just like rips my shore apart. So it doesn't really, there's really no time frame for anything to take foothold in the property to make it stay, especially when it's compounded by the properties around me, which funnel everything right into me. In fact, it's not, it's not as easy to see. Maybe if you see in the, right where the arrow is pointing, I mean, it builds a horseshoe into the property, and it's getting worse. And I'm trying to save trees, I'm trying to save wetland, and to make it nice. And that's the purpose of what I'm trying to do, and doing it in an environmentally responsible way, which is why my feeling that a low sill bulkhead is the way to go. And I want to do it before my entire, the one side, which would be the bottom part by the walkway on the shoreline. These trees are ready to just fall right into the canal. And it's going to block the entire canal. Who's going to pay to clean this up? Who's going to pay to cut it? It's going to be a disaster environmentally to begin with. So I have a small window probably to save these trees and to save the property, and I'm trying to do that.
So on that subject, yeah, you have other
Yes.
permits,
We have everything filed with the DEC.
but you don't have anything back yet.
Well,
comments.
they had objections,
You do.
which we're answering,
So-
but we wanted to do it all at once.
Okay, that's good.
The comments are basically not that they're opposing to the low sill, they just have some specific things that they were looking for. They requested basically a hydrographic survey showing the...
That was my next question.
Yeah, so we have the hydrographic survey
Yeah,
that
what
shows
what
the
is
limits of the
what is the
wetlands.
elevation change from the dredged canal to that property? It's pretty steep, 4
So-
feet.
So Chris, you've handled these before.
Yep.
So can you speak to the nexus between the possibility of eliminating the erosional at the same time preserving the wetland characteristics as we're trying to do?
So, yeah, what we're trying to do is, I have a picture here of the low sill. Yeah, that would be what we'd be proposing initially, when we fill in, we get a nice marsh.
So you're gonna have a net gain of wetlands.
Net gain of
That's-
wetlands behind,
Yeah.
behind the
Because right
bulkhead
now,
from
it's
the
not a
property line.
straight shoreline, there's undulations in it.
Yep.
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take points on each end of it,
Yes.
put a straight low sill bulkhead.
Yep.
Refill some of the area and revegetate it.
Yep, we're gonna be revegetating.
Are you, I don't see the written portion of your request, but is there holes that are gonna be drilled into this low sill, or is it,
And not currently, like weep holes for the
Yeah.
water to get out.
To get in
We
and
don't
out.
currently have that proposed, but is
Yeah,
that
but
just
something the
asking,
board would
I
be,
know
yeah.
with the state with low sill, they're very, and us as well, very, very careful about what the level is set
Yes.
at, to make sure it actually is a true
Yep.
functioning low sill, so that you do get the benefit of the thriving
topping.
wetland.
They might have
with
to
the
wait
overtop.
until they put it in to see how it sits.
Okay.
They have the weep holes.
That's why I was asking, like, with the state,
Well,
because
you
I
really,
know,
if it's a 1/3, 2/3 formula, you don't need repulse.
in some instances, we had mandated that there were.
Weep holes put in?
Yeah, so that's why I'm just asking, like, and I don't know where the state is, because in the experience that this board has had on other projects with
Yep.
low sill.
Okay.
The engineering of that, not necessarily just the weep holes, just the whole elevation point of it was obviously very critical.
Sure. The idea of the weep holes is that salt water is able to get into the marsh and also
If they're-
retreat
in the
from
holes-
it.
Get out.
Yeah.
Because sometimes behind the hole's too much water,
Right.
and it's not good for some of the plants, so they want
Right,
to
so you're
slowly
holding-
drain.
You want the
Right.
flush.
Right, so you're holding back you're dealing with the erosional issue
Mm-hmm.
that you have, but you're also, on the other side of that, making sure that, like, to your point, you yourself want to preserve the wetland.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making sure that you're getting the proper back and forth, so that there's a potential for thrive, for it to thrive.
Yeah, I just want to keep the line straight, that's all I want to do.
Because some of the grass wants to get wet.
Yeah,
every
yeah,
6
yeah.
hours, not
Right.
sit in water.
Right, so I mean, it's, this is, your expertise. There are other regulatory authorities that do have a,
The proposed structure that you're replacing,
Yes.
is it in line with the present bulkheads on the north and south?
So
Or is
currently-
it somewhat upland?
Currently, it's proposed to be slightly seaward of the adjacent bulkheads to get the level
Seaward?
of proposed.
It'll hook into the
It's-
returns.
Yeah, hook into the returns.
Yeah, that way he doesn't have to put returns on it.
No, I understand it, but seaward of the other bulkheads,
That's why you showed, so that's why you showed in your picture, in your pictures, that there's the backside of that one, Chris, that you have on the top.
yeah, let's see that one.
This is just an example.
Yeah.
Right, but that shows seaward. So they're coming out, there's the contour of the land as it sits now, and then they're coming out.
We could realign to bring everything so it's
Back.
straight in line with
You hook it up
with
to the-
everything.
hook
I
it to
think
be
that
hooked up
was
to the returns.
To
structure-
returns.
Side.
Structurally, because, now, next question is, a standard bulkhead, you have lay logs and dead men.
Yes.
You have tremendous amount, it's all vegetated, so
Yep.
how are you going to facilitate holding that bulkhead from not
I
falling
believe it's
over?
going to be cantilevered, so it's like
Okay.
driven in and,
Yes.
no tie
Vibrated
rods or
in.
anything.
You
'Cause-
you would have to vibrate that in.
Yeah.
minimal disturbance to the wetland that's
Yeah.
surrounding it.
And there's not that much stuff you're holding. to push it
Right.
forward.
No,
Very
no, you
well.
don't, but it's still
You need
gravity
you
and,
might have to put some, what do you call it, helios in there.
or double pilings, one in front and one in the back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I believe you said you'd owned the property 5 years, correct?
Like 5.5 years, yeah.
Right, so this is the first time you're considering?
Not considering. I've considered it from the minute I bought the property. The problem is that I didn't want to come before the trustees and not have land that's compliant. My land is compliant right now. I have a certificate of wetland compliance, and I didn't want to, turn, and then, be a hypocrite, say that I want my wetlands and not be compliant in the meantime. So everything has been done, with the conservation department downstairs. Everything's up to snuff with what they require from me, and I didn't want to move forward until that was done.
When was the coil log project done?
Was that
It
5 years ago?
It was done just prior to us buying the house.
And was that with a trustee permit?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And
It was
wh-
done by First Coastal, I think.
In that project, where was
Shake
the
his head.
mean, the mean high water located versus where it is now?
So you tried to be good steward.
Yeah.
The property owners have tried to be good stewards of the wetland here. It's just, right, you've tried to comply. you've
I've
to-
tried, yeah, and I've tried to come up with any, I've actually called the University of Maryland. I'm sorry, you were asking previously about,
Alternatives?
alternatives. I contacted University of Maryland about a project they were running in
Delaware Bay?
in the bay, which involved using PVC piping at different levels, which was like a
Pilot project, maybe?
it was because they have the same problem with shoreline erosion, but they don't want to ruin Chesapeake Bay, and, so I investigated that, but it never came to any conclusion because they, it just, it had promise, but
It had a pilot, it was probably a pilot
it was
project.
a pilot
and then-
program,
and they-
and so I did really do as much as you could do on a computer with Google research for
You got it, Chris?
environmentally friendly shoreline erosion, that's,
13, yeah, Conservation Board.
Chris, are there any other suggestions by the DEC?
DEC,
Yeah.
they didn't really have any other suggestions. They just wanted, some clarifications on a few points. As mentioned, the hydrographic survey is, to get the extent of the wetlands, just how much fill we were potentially bringing in, and then just calculations. So they don't object to it specifically, and they brought up a point that the covenant that Marty, the Environment Division had put on, but it said that as long as your board approves, we can have any kind of structure there, basically. As long as your
my
board
current
approves.
covenant that I signed, Marty Shea specifically said to me that if the trustees approve a bulkhead, this does not stop that. He said that specifically to me.
So you're not asking for a bulkhead per se, you're asking for a low sill.
Correct.
of a-
Correct, a low sill structure. And the idea was that we were, creating a net gain of wetlands at the property, and,
If you're
the
creating a
client-
net gain, that should help out with the conservation
Right.
board's concerns.
I'm also
growing wetlands.
trying to be a good neighbor. I mean, I know
I
that
know
they're
it's a tough-
dredging the canal, or they're in the process of getting the permits to dredge the canal. Everyone is blaming me also, like saying that my erosion, has, is gonna, I'm not an expert on it either, but they say that it's contributing to like filling the canal up.
Well, isn't the whole west side not bulkheaded?
Yes, but that was always wetland, so it was never,
Stable?
it was always stabilized as a wetland. There was never any,
Yours is not stable, theirs is stable.
mine is not stable.
The
It's
the west
unstable.
side, does it have like a
Very
meadow there
unstable.
versus a, like, open shoreline?
It's nicely vegetated over
I was
on
gonna say
the other
pretty.
side.
Maybe
It's
James.
completely different than.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's a total-
a
You don't
completely
see
different
any
look. I mean,
erosion
right up,
hotspots. It's all the
like,
same.
right up
Here-
to the water is, you know, the cattails and everything, right through the water line on the other side.
And one thing also to mention, looking at the aerials, the entire, his side of the creek is entirely bulkheaded and lawns up to the bulkhead.
I was just gonna say, manicured
He's got,
lawns.
you know, the only one with a 75-foot buffer, you know, attempting to help out.
And he has
So-
no objection, he, like he said, he wants to keep the
Yeah,
wetlands.
you know, I want my wetlands. Like I said, I'm trying to save trees,
And he would like to,
which is
you know,
one of the reasons why.
You gotta like your wetlands, because you're gonna be living with them forever.
Of course.
That's the way it's gonna be.
No, I
have a-
realize
I
that.
have a question for her. Being that Marty has a covenant on there, if we were to permit a low sill bulkhead, would that covenant still be enforced as far as being a conservation? Because I don't want.
Yes, it would,
I-
because.
I want to make sure that.
Because
we
the
don't-
actual wetlands runs to my property line, which is in the middle of the canal.
Okay.
yeah,
So-
so
so
it begins
I don't want
from,
them to-
All it would do is that, to, you know, to technically answer your question, it would increase the non-fertilized area.
We would have to look at that covenant, you know, we would make sure, we would have more.
Yes, that's right. There's two issues, so depending on the language of the covenant, number one. Number two, if it was properly recorded, it would be enforceable. Second issue is, since this is a bulkhead that's going to be built where none previously existed, it would trigger a secret type 1 analysis.
I know I have it because you just sent it to me.
I have it here.
This is a work in progress, we're not gonna resolve this today.
We gotta wait till DEC at the very least.
Yeah, this is gonna
This
be
might be
a work in progress here.
the deed, I don't know if you want to see.
So
I'm
you
not-
you have a time element
Yeah.
that
I'm
you're talking
not,
about.
well, you know what it is I'm not putting pressure or anything, but I'm just saying that there
This is
is,
an anti-adoptive
there's an
resolution.
element here
Right.
that I'm
I
trying
think
to
so.
save in my own backyard. And I know that they're, you know, they've been there up till now, and
Right. I mean, that's understood.
hopefully between now and hopefully my permitting process, I won't lose these, and I'll find a way to save them. But I know that it's close.
Is there anything that the trustees would allow to potentially prop up the trees to stop more trees from going in, either a temporary measure?
Can you
that-
do guy wires?
See, guide wires going landward, pulling them
Okay.
back, that,
Anchoring
but that would be
back in.
out of our jurisdiction. It would be-
Yeah, I can't do anything
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
property.
because you're in
You're
in
in
that
wetlands.
covenant.
Yeah,
You're
right.
in that covenant, so you're gonna have to speak to the,
You'd have to talk to Marty.
talk to them and
Yeah,
then speak to somebody.
You know, you gotta go through a permitting process for that. It's a whole,
And
a
speak
whole
to somebody
thing.
in that business, you know, to say, wait, what could we do? Because,
Right.
you know, you have to satisfy all the regulatory authorities' concerns. So even if we were to approve something today, if the state has an issue for the next 8 months,
It's a unique situation. He wants to keep his property as, you know, natural as possible, but there is, you know, erosion issues happening.
And the idea with a situation like this would be that we could fill it in and prop the trees back up and, you know, allow him to keep the trees that are currently falling into the canal.
It's a tough situation. You know, I understand, but
well,
I'm just
you're-
looking for the
you're-
best solution.
You're in part of the process right now, so.
What is the extent of dredging that it's proposed in this canal? Is it gonna be all the way up past your property, or is it?
I don't know.
Because if it is in front of your property and they do take out more material, it's gonna even make.
What is in that?
We're
everything-
proposing 10 feet, right?
Yeah, I
10
believe
feet
it's,
in front of the proposed low sill.
I believe most of the dredging is on the southern end. It's the mouth of the canal
okay.
that's getting
That's what I
closed in.
thought.
Yeah, because we have
So it's
pretty
not
good
per-
water
it's not
depths in
past where
front.
you are.
Yeah, there might still be some, you know, you might need to go up there, but
Yeah, but
Leave the
it's
extent
deep
of
in
it.
front of.
Yeah, it's 4 and 5
it's,
feet.
yeah, we don't need any
James,
dredging.
can you go down to the
in
mouth
front of
for
these.
these?
So what's the next steps here?
I'd like to see living shoreline considered still, but I understand that
Yeah,
if
we-
you're
we
in
have to s-
process with DEC. But just for your edification, a living shoreline would be slightly different from the core logs. It would be a rock sill it would be submerged aquatic vegetation, and then your bank would be planted. And there are some situations where the bank would be stabilized with rock as well. So it is a net increase in your wetlands to the same effect as the low slope bulkhead.
And we have used that approach also in other areas. I recall in Hampton Bays, we did some areas. It's just about,
The headwater of Tiana.
exactly, the headwaters of Tiana. It's about, making sure you get that course properly stable so it
Right.
doesn't just, make.
Our fear was gonna roll into the
Right.
dredge canal. That's still my fear here.
Right, so that's what I'm wondering, you're right. So have you looked at this or thought about this from your expertise?
The living shoreline.
Shoreline
Yeah.
type. mix
This
of
was
green and
the
gray.
initial, proposal,
That's
the
what's in
initial
there.
thought, that's what the client, ideally would like. Just for clarification, you'd be potentially open to the line of rocks connecting the two edges of the bulkheads,
Yeah.
filling that in, and then also armoring with maybe smaller stones and rocks,
Yeah.
the shoreline there.
Yeah, not filling behind it, that's usually not the proper term, but yes.
Yes. Okay.
Two
But it may not
parallel-
work too.
Two
Right,
parallel.
so in
Right.
that scenario, we wouldn't be able to put any
Yeah, it's true.
sand or anything to keep the trees, to
It
to
would-
keep
There
the
would
other side
be-
of the route.
There would be rock along the
Yeah,
shoreline.
okay. Gotcha.
So that would stabilize the
Excellent.
And it's
the
not,
trees.
it's not suitable for every location
Yeah,
either,
but
and that's
sure.
why I'm asking,
Is the
sometimes.
footprint of the living shoreline larger than the footprint of the proposed low sill? And which one gives you the most net gain of green
Yeah.
versus, gray?
Which in this scenario, it may be
That-
the low sill.
Yeah, and that was our
The
initial
other,
thought.
I know it's
trying to
not
really-
the trustee's problem, but when we do the other types of things like the koi logs and the natural shore, it might take us like 4 or 5 years to actually find out if it works. And these things, they do come at a big expense. The koi log, the last proposal we got from First Coastal to do the koi logs all over, when I went to speak to them about a bulkhead, because we already did the koi logs, and it wasn't even 5 years old, and we're already proposing it again at a cost of $45,000 or $35,000. I forgot the exact number, but I can't just keep throwing $35,000
Coil
out
logs
every.
are designed to be a temporary structure.
Right.
So that the bluff or the shore behind it reconstitutes itself.
Right.
And they do have like a 3 or 4 or 5 year shelf
Mm-hmm.
life. At that time, they pretty much dissolve, and then everything should be somewhat solid there.
Yeah.
It sounds like
But
they
just
dissolved and it
feeling from
wasn't
my
solid.
standpoint.
You tried that, it didn't work.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
It's too much energy there.
it's a big expense that winds up with net zero results.
Well, the
At-
intention.
At that particular
Right.
thing, we know, we have experience with that. Not what you're talking about, but I know similar things, and it's gonna take us time to even know if it's gonna work, and then at that point, how much have I already lost?
And you sound like you're pretty far along in the state process with the intention of net gain to wetlands.
Right.
That's
So-
the idea.
And you don't have that, the unknown of losing the,
What do you think the time frame of receiving the DEC, a permit from them, or an actual response?
Yeah,
would
so
be?
we do have an incomplete letter. We wanted to, get comments from you guys before we modify plans again and send it back to the
Now, are
agencies.
comments similar to their comments? Or do they
Their
have?
comments were more specific on clarifications on the
that I
plans.
drove.
Yeah, and getting the extent of the wetlands with
Right.
the hydrographic survey.
Yeah.
so you're
So
pretty-
they really haven't objected to, typically, they ask for, a softer shoreline, but they weren't asking for that in this case. They're just asking for, some more clarifications and some more information so they can
So
see.
you could come up with a formula of calculating the net gain
That-
of the,
Yes.
low sill versus the
Yeah,
stone and, just for conversation.
I
okay,
think that would be helpful.
yeah,
And then definitely the elevation of
The bank.
the bank.
okay,
I mean, the slope of it.
right,
If it's a 1 to 3 or 1 to 5.
Yeah,
that's-
they did
that's-
ask for
That's
a-
really critical.
okay. And they asked for a clarification of, how much wetlands were to be lost or gained, and
Yeah.
so that was
So-
hydrographic survey, back to you guys.
When do you think the next appropriate time for us to bring this back to work session would be, where you would have some of this information to perhaps answer some of these
Okay, maybe-
issues or questions?
Yeah, I was thinking, 2 or 3 months, so you can get the plans amended back
We get the
into the
plans amended
agencies.
and
And
then
we're also in with the Army Corps of Engineers.
Right, so-
Um,
So you're talking, midsummer, like July, August,
yeah,
back on the
I-
work session?
I think that would be
You
good.
would have all that.
Or if it's earlier, they can always come
Well,
earlier.
you could, right, you could give us a call and let us know that you have.
Okay.
If we have, yeah, the minute.
Yes.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Well,
We
we
can
don't want to
set
put it on
some-
for 2 weeks, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
no,
we
we
need
don't
more
have
than
anything
2 weeks
Yeah.
to get everything,
Yeah.
but the client's obviously, concerned about the erosion, so we do want to get
And-
it as quickly as we can.
And given that you are concerned
Yep.
about your trees, I don't think it's, I think it would be worth a call, at least, to ask about stabilizing the trees by staking them.
Well, you don't want to hear, the comment that was made when I said they would fall down.
It's a natural process.
He says it's a natural process. He says it would be great. He says it would create more,
Fish
like
habitat?
environment for our aquatic creatures.
More
and
habitat.
stuff.
It would.
Marty and I get along very well, but, and I really do. I mean, like, the office was closed downstairs, and he opened the door to let me in, because he knew I was working on it personally, but he did make comments like that, and I said, that's not what I want to hear.
Look, we're trying to achieve
We're trying to do two
a
things
balance.
here.
We're trying to achieve a
And
balance.
that's the reason why it's like, you know what? They came to me with a proposal for the low sill. And they said, it's environmentally friendly. And I says, okay. I says, it would work in my neighborhood because I'm the only one without a bulkhead. I think that's really kind of key to this conversation. It makes my property a magnifier for erosion. And it has been ever since I've been there. Everyone was like really downplaying that when we bought the house, and then I'm sitting there watching the land just erode
Well,
away.
we want to have gains of wetlands.
Right.
We can't afford much more losses
And
of wetlands.
that's why I said
We can't afford that.
that's
So-
great. I says, look, we're gonna gain what? On the wetland, the way I'm looking at it, we're gonna gain like 6-8 feet of wetland,
But that's,
and I'm all for that.
well, that's the key, because the trustees of modern day here today are dealing with the decisions that were made for land use many, many, many decades ago. And it's like we end up in these situations. So you're trying to save the ecosystem, you're trying to save species of fish. So we're trying to find that balance where we're having a gain of wetlands, but yet we're understanding, the perspective of folks like yourself. And, I commend you for, the property owners and even the past ones that work with the other to try and stabilize it and everything that you're going through, and you're coming here appropriately and trying to work through it with all the authorities and experts, and we'll hopefully arrive at something that makes sense.
I hope so.
Okay.
I appreciate everything that you could do, and thank you for your time.
See you in a couple months, if not sooner.
Sounds good.
I'll give you guys a call in a minute if we have something beforehand.
Yeah, you can just let James and the office know.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
That's everything. Did you know
Okay, Trustee Parish.
Troy LLC, 482 Dune Road in West Hampton Beach, LI expedite.
Morning.
Good morning.
Ladies and gentlemen,
State your name for the record, sign in.
Louis Caglianone for Donald Marshmiller. Okay, so Donald has an existing bulkhead. So first off, the DEC has already commented, and these are the plans that were resubmitted to the DEC. I just brought copies here. Their only comments were, there were a couple of comments on the scale of the couple of areas of the plan, and they had asked not to add a seaward extension because the seaward extension would cause fill into the wetlands.
Well, why don't you start by saying what the application is seeking?
Application is seeking to replace its existing bulkhead and extending the return.
So it has an existing timber bulkhead that's very low. High water line is at the bulkhead, so any wave action at all runs over the bulkhead, causes erosion, and takes sand each time around the edge of the bulkhead. So he wants to raise the bulkhead to minimize the wave action over the wall and extend the return on one side into slightly higher ground to stop the flow around it if something does come over, and to replenish the fill that was already lost to the amount of about 75 cubic yards.
Do a native vegetative buffer behind that?
There is already existing grass growing behind it, except where the eroded area is, and washed it all out. We plan on replacing that.
Maybe restoration, that's on your permit paperwork?
Yes, with American beach grass, which is what's growing.
What's the situation with the adjoining Trustee Parish?
You bring up the photographs. It shows there's no, the return on the, was that the west?
This is the west, yeah.
30 feet, and looking to increase the.
Right, that is the
return.
area that is extra low where the runoff comes over the wall and it runs out that way. The neighbor's properties are substantially higher. A lot of fill was brought in for each of them, so he's kind of the low area on the block there. And you can see the areas that washed out. It's pretty obvious. And just this winter alone, it got a little bit worse.
James, could you draw, oh, sorry. When you go back to the, if you just draw back for a moment. So is there bulkhead on the property to the north?
To the, yeah, that would be the, I guess,
North
the
and
east,
east?
the northeast.
There is or is not?
It appears that the existing bulkhead runs into the ground there because the grade comes up at the corner. So if the bulkhead is level, it runs into that grade, which you can see is vegetated by the tennis court there.
Right, so there's no bulkhead then on the property that has the tennis court on it to the north and to
No,
the
there
east?
is. I'm not sure how far it goes, but it extends past us and goes subterranean. You can see the line continues there and it kind of disappears on the ground. I couldn't see the end.
Probably could find out if there was a permit for that how far it goes.
They put a ton of fill in there?
It is higher than
Yeah.
both sides.
And this
Pretty
bulkhead
much
gets
that.
buried here. Looks like the bulkhead goes all the way over there.
This, the one with the
So
current
the existing
one?
bulkhead
Yeah.
is very low above. The high water comes right to the bottom. It's just this high, so any wave action
But there
comes
are
over.
rocks
So he's
down below,
proposing a
right?
little bit higher
Corner there?
to minimize the
So-
wave
so
action.
how do you-
Proposing 18
Yes.
inches.
Yeah.
Right, and the seaward extension has
So
been
there's like.
So how are you
farther
justifying
south.
that?
the extra height.
dimension that you're going at. In other words, I know the state gives you these blanket whatever, but it's still got to make sense relative to the actual area. So just wondering, on a more specific basis, what's driving, and what do you think makes sense?
Based on what the homeowner says, he says, on a typical winter storm with a northwesterly wind, the waves are,
It overtops.
2 feet over the top.
2 feet over the top. So relative to the adjoining property owners and relative to, the slope of the land, I mean, what makes sense versus just a blanket,
I
number?
understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, right. So the height was definitely picked from the typical max, but it made sense based on what he says with the wave action. So if you come around, if you look on the side with the 30-foot return, where we're proposing a 30-foot return, which would be that area there, you could see just to the left of where that sand ends, the grade goes up just a little bit, and the bulkhead would dive into that.
So what is that differential in terms of elevation?
You mean elevation change,
Yeah,
Scott?
exactly.
Between the property to the west?
Right, where it's diving in.
It's low right there, but it's, I don't have
He
a,
might cause a trap of water.
Right, because that would be some, you got to get site-specific on the conditions so that I think there's a determination of what's going to make sense here.
It might be better off keeping the same length and do different type of plan and heavy duty plan.
I'm sorry,
Keep it the same height and just be planning. Keep the stuff from going.
yeah, again, he had sent me some videos, I should have brought them, of the last few storms. You could see his concern, and I'm not sure replanting it would survive a
Right.
winter the first year.
I think you need to take some action. We're just trying to determine from our perspective what.
How hard?
Yeah.
You could see his attempts with plywood there just to stop the, it clearly runs around that side.
He's making his own,
Yeah, he's trying to minimize what
yeah,
happens
that's-
on a regular basis.
right, I think,
So the wave action is understood, his concern with the wave action, you know, so,
I mean, it is understood, and I don't think the board is adverse to working with a good project that's gonna make sense. I think we just don't wanna make blanket, use blanket measurements versus more site-specific measurements of what's gonna make sense for that specific property. So I don't know if you have an ability to, you know,
so what do you?
get tighter on that. I'd
Yeah.
have to go look at it, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
You know, and instead of just going with the state's broad brush, because the conversations with theirs, there's no way leaving it up to you to make the local determination.
Right, understood.
So, that's why I'm saying, what do you have to justify what a local determination would be? Bill, did you go down there?
No, I haven't gone to this one.
it-
But I did have a question also with respect to the existing grade. What are you gonna do that landward? What are you gonna do with that grade? According to this proposed bulkhead replacement section, you're going to fill in the existing grade?
Right, so you can see the picture, so basically the bulkhead isn't really holding grade back anymore, it's just it's a wall protruding out, so the grade's the same on both sides. You know, so we propose building back the landward side a little bit more, you know, up to the new height of the bulkhead, refilling that in. I figured it was about 40 yards. 35 yards behind the bulkhead, and that low area would take about 40.
And then replanted with the beach grass.
Yes.
If that bulkhead gets overtopped, isn't the water just gonna go back towards the property?
There would be a
Towards the house
bit of
with the grade
a
like that?
valley, if you will, you know, a swale.
Yeah.
Well, that's the grade is low. The grade under the house is pretty low, so it's really not really possible to build a whole property up to create a pitch out to the bulkhead. So the goal is to minimize the overflow of water so that we won't have a big issue in a puddle. But you know, it's well draining soil, so if it's not flowing, it's not going to be pulling stuff out with it. It will leach into the ground.
So do you think you need to take another look at this relative to the elevation part of this thing, or what's your thoughts on that?
I think that maybe we should look at the elevation where the return meets, and maybe use that as a governing factor, like maybe come back to where you can see where it runs off around the side, maybe come to, take an elevation where that is and where where the next highest spot is where water doesn't really go, and maybe that could determine the height of the bulkhead where it dies into that grade.
Yeah, because I think we need some better look. What are you thinking, Trustee Parrish?
There's just a lot of unknown.
Well, that's what.
If you saw the site, again, if the pictures don't really do it justice,
Yeah,
maybe
well-
after you guys visit it, we can, talk about it more.
I think a site visit would be.
A site visit would be good, but I also think we need to get a little bit more specific on what that elevation is gonna make sense.
So
on that
maybe a
grade
topographic survey of the property, and then we
I
can,
think we gotta get a better understanding than the broad brush, because even for the sake of getting the best project that you can, I mean, to just run with a number because it's in some
Understood.
regulatory permit.
maybe 10 inches will do the job.
That's
instead
what
of
we're getting
18.
at. Sometimes it's like,
Six or something.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you wanna get the right project for your client
Right.
at the end of the day.
And then
We
there's,
don't-
and then there's the, we have to say, well, what is the right height based on, what is it based on? It's based on normal tides, is it based on winter storms?
Well-
And if it is based on winter storms and we go higher, how do we deal with the runoff that
Right.
does come over? I understand what you're
I
saying.
mean, with storms, all bets are off. I mean, you get a bad enough storm, it's,
Right.
everything's whatever. For the normal, what's going on, acknowledge sea level rise, acknowledge the changes, what's gonna make sense and not
Right.
create adverse impacts on adjoining properties.
Yes.
And what's not gonna create adverse impacts on the property.
If you
know
look
what I
at
mean?
the aerial, the location map of where he is, he's kind of in a little pocket. If you
He's
zoom
in a
out a little
cove.
bit. Yeah, so any boat wakes or anything that comes his way kind of is on him. So he gets the wave action worse than most
Right.
would be where they brush off. He's kind of a dead end.
But
One thing you have to remember, when you take an elevation of a bulkhead and you put it up a foot or 2 feet, and you get a storm surge and wave action, that wave reverberation, which you're protecting one property, you gotta wonderful wetlands there. Those waves bounce back, and it's going to cause erosion, 500 feet on the other property. So it's like a balancing effect, where we're trying to protect one property and not destroy another property. Because I know in Shinnecock Bay, on an easterly wind, on a moderate tide, the waves ricochet and they go back 2 miles back into the bay. So putting a wetlands there, then you might have a net loss of a wetlands, not meaning that to happen, but it does happen with these storms and the wave. So that's why when we look at these bulkheads and raising them up, we try to do the minimal amount of raise to protect property that we're looking at, but also lessen the effects around the bay.
And what I'm looking at is, there's a whole stretch there of really healthy marsh. This is the only bulkheaded property in that whole cove, and then traveling to the west. There is a rock core or a rock sill that I can see, yes, there, but there's no bulkhead here at all. So to think about increasing, as Scott's saying, in a site-specific or a general way where you're going up 18 inches, look at the effects on the neighboring properties, and the neighboring properties are extensive when you look at something like this, because this is the only bulkhead, and the reflection of the wave energy of it is absorbed to some extent by the marsh. So it's helped actually by the neighboring properties.
Right, so I think he's got to go, we'll all get maybe some time to, on our own, go take a look at this, but I think relative to the site specifics, take a look at that aspect, and then let's put this on for another.
Yeah.
So for more specific directive, I should probably get a topographic survey on the property and incorporate the proposed height of the bulkhead into a total site grading.
So there's
we can
rhyme and
kinda
reason,
see.
so we're not just indiscriminately
Understood.
causing problems in the rest of the region. And then individually, trustees can go down there and take a look at it.
A positive drainage that doesn't adversely affect the neighbors is
And
consideration,
what you-
right?
Exactly,
Yes.
and what you're doing, like relative to the discussion about the overtop with this, the native vegetation helps this, dissipate that wave energy, where you're not increasing it so badly and letting it dissipate and not have the erosional factors on your property. And you're kind of, getting the best bang for the buck there. But I think we got to get more site-specific. How soon do you think, how much time do you need to put this together where it would make sense for you to come back?
I'm gonna reach back out to the surveyor, and this basically on his schedule,
Okay.
and let the owner know that, we need to get this done. So on my end, I can turn it around quick.
Right.
But
You
I
have
would
other
imagine.
regulatory authorities to deal with too, right?
Yes, they're all, the only one left is the DEC's final approval. Like I said, their only comment was a couple of things on the scale, and they wanted no seaward extension. Originally, I had proposed a 12-inch seaward extension, just to minimize impact, not have to take the old one out, but they wanted faces flush, which is easy enough.
Yeah, but you're not done yet, so you're still.
Yeah,
You got,
I'm not
you have
done.
some time here to work, so
I
we're not getting-
expect an approval from them shortly, but it is what it is, and
Yeah.
we can revise it afterwards.
Right.
And if the only change per se, looking forward, is the height of the bulkhead, those were less than what they approved.
Right.
It wouldn't require resubmission
That's
for
what we're getting
them.
at, right.
Right.
All right, so you good with that? We'll put it on hold for now. The other trustees can take a look at it. You'll get us some more site-specific information.
Yeah, so what's the best route of attack? Just give a call when I have it and ask what to do with the plans?
Email
James.
James.
Call James.
Yeah, or email James.
Email
Or
James,
email him.
and send all the information over, and.
You have any interest in these, what the DEC has to date?
You could get it to our office, and
Yeah,
this way
give
we
it-
have it in a
yeah,
file. James,
Put
it's
it all
Okay.
in a file so we have it for future discussion.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, so that concludes the regular portion of it, but we've got general permit applications for determination relative to final stamp plan review. Trustee Pell?
I have 120 Island Creek Road.
Is Rob here? No, Rob Herman was supposed to send us the updated plans stamped
Did he?
and be here, but he did not. He didn't receive it, so we'll just
Hold it over.
hold it till the next one.
Hold.
Okay.
You have another one?
85 Down East Lane, into Science. Come on out. Did you get their plans?
Yes, I believe we did.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Hello.
Hi there.
You've been waiting all morning for us.
Sorry?
Yeah, you've been waiting all morning for 5 minutes.
But yeah, I believe I provided the stamped plans. I'm not sure if there's any
Get to
questions.
sign in
but-
too.
State name,
We're all
record,
set?
Yeah,
sign
we're all
in.
good as stamp here.
Okay, we're all
And
set.
Sabrina Kelly, Commander Science, 36 Nugent.
So we can move that one forward.
Okay. That'll advance.
All right. So is there any more questions, Bill, or are we
No,
good?
we're done.
All right.
He's advanced, you're good.
We're good, okay.
22nd.
All right, so we have Bradley's Fishing Station LLC, 43 Canoe Place Road. James, I see the owners here. James, do we have everything?
Good, how are you?
Everything's been submitted, James?
I'm pulling it up now.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello,
board.
how are you?
Greetings and salutations.
State your name for the record, sign in like everybody else.
Ron Arcadi, representing Bradley's Fishing Station, which is what we call it.
So it was when I was a kid.
Blast from the past.
Yes.
It's all good, buddy.
Everything else comes and goes, but Bradley's will always be there.
Still a couple hooks
Nice to
hanging
get a
up
blast
somewhere,
from the
probably.
There's still some oil in the floor from where they changed the
We don't want to do that.
unit.
Stamped, all good.
It's all good, so you're good for advance?
So you can move advance.
All
Okay.
right, so you're advanced, so you're done.
That will be put on for next week's, next meeting, right?
Right.
James?
Resolution for
Yes.
next.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
So I can't start until 3 weeks?
No.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we need to pass a resolution. You're all good, but we need to make a resolution, we need to pass a resolution in terms of process.
June 5th.
It's not 2
That's
weeks,
the-
it's 3 weeks. I
Because
What day is the
of
next,
Memorial
what's the next
Day.
meeting?
June
June
5th.
Because of the holiday.
Memorial
Yep.
Day.
Yeah, so June 5.
All right,
Is
thank
that
you.
all right?
Pretty
Thank
sure
you.
it's the
5.
5th. Hang
Yep.
on one second, let me just double check.
See, yeah.
26 Far Pond LLC, 26 Far Pond.
And Lisa, what's the next meeting after June 5th?
So we got everything from Inner Science, correct?
Yeah.
Stamp plans are all ready to go?
Yep.
So let's advance that one too.
And last one, Hidden Cove Marine LLC, 51 Pine Neck Avenue, Noyak.
Yeah, 19.
We, oh,
Yep.
hi there.
Andy couldn't make it, the owner just asked me to sit in and
Okay.
report back.
Yeah, you can sit in and sign in.
State your name and sign in.
Joseph Ialachi?
Representing Hidden Cove Marina.
Yes.
And you submitted modification and stamp plans. And James, we went over all of that, so I believe that we're good to advance, correct?
Yes, got the stamp plans.
Tell me what he's supposed to do, we'll advance it.
All right. Sounds good.
All right.
So I'm sorry that you came for nothing.
Well, probably better off that you came for
But-
nothing.
That's a good news then.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
And then can someone educate me on the process, or were you going to? I'm sorry.
Yes, so there'll be a resolution, just like with the previous, there'll be a resolution on the June 5th meeting, and then after that, we'll issue you the permit of compliance, the permit.
So the certificate of compliance
Compliance.
will come, how
Yes.
many days after generally? 2, 3, 4?
Well, the permit will come, it'll be re-inspected or looked at with the new permit, and then you'll get a certificate of compliance.
Time-wise,
Thank you.
because you're doing,
get
I
inspected.
think
Yeah.
there's, within a couple weeks, right?
Whenever George
Gets
inspects
Gets
it.
there, exactly.
Yeah, it-
You're
by
trying
the-
to,
by July, probably.
It's not like a resolution
Well-
thing, so it's an inspection
the
thing.
owners are attempting to refinance the property,
Right.
I believe, so there's some time
Yeah, we'll get 'em out there
sensitivity
as soon as
to
we can.
this, so.
So you have to
I think-
re-inspect?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Permit has to be issued, we're gonna vote on it at the next meeting.
on the 5th?
At that point, you'll get your permit, and
Oh,
then
good.
we'll send the dock inspector out to look
You
at it
might not
again.
even have to go out.
He might not
May
even have
already
to go
know.
out, yeah, because he already knows that
So
they're,
as long as the permit
Yeah.
And
shows
the
that
plans are
the
good.
changes.
and then
were
he will
good.
write up,
Yeah, 'cause that's what I was thinking, we paid to have the
You
plans
already
looked
did it,
at.
you already
Yes.
looked at it, yeah.
Correct.
and he'll write up a report stating everything is compliant, and then
I
you'll
just
get a
don't know
letter.
how long that's
Yeah.
processed, I'm not
Quick
involved.
as we
So,
can.
if-
Writing the
if
compliance
Manny-
letter, so.
If Manny just checks in sometime in the first couple weeks of June.
After that meeting?
After that
Should be
meeting,
good.
yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Should be fine.
Great. And do I leave with a A or an H on that piece of paper today? Could that help?
You got an A.
The egg. Does someone offer that at the office, or?
It'll be posted online.
That's just work
It's
session
posted
stuff.
online.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, tonight?
Or tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
He
You got-
can-
you got an
he
egg.
can call
Okay,
if
perfect. Got an egg.
he
All right.
wishes. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
the official resolution is at the next meeting. This is just a nuts and bolts work
To
session.
say
You
that-
can
So
just tell
if
him
it-
it's advanced.
Yeah.
Perfect,
The board
okay.
advanced it. Yeah.
Great, I think I get it now.
Yeah,
All right,
okay.
great.
Resolution.
All right, thank you,
Next meeting.
everyone.
Thank you.
So that concludes our work session, and we even added something. So I think at this point in time, we need to adjourn this meeting and go into an exec session according to this, for the purposes of discussing personnel and litigation.
All right.
So I made a motion.
Second.
Seconded, trustee Pell, all in favor?
All right.
Okay, have a nice afternoon, everybody. We'll see you at the general.
Thank you.
Thank you.